Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and tonight, it's this afternoon even,
This
my
afternoon.
weekend was pretty busy. I had a
Aye.
busy weekend that's catching up with me. This afternoon, I am joined by DJ, Giggsy, and Quinny, and I'll explain all that in a wee second, Kevin Graham. We might also be joined by Acsom Rabbani. It is a huge week in the world of Celtic. We are going to be focusing on all the good stuff, and I'm pretty sure there'll be a few worries and concerns creeping in as well, because Quinny, what would an hour talking about Celtic be without all that stuff? Are the press going to stop asking Brendan Rodgers about recruitment, Quinny?
It feels like this is a mandatory thing now, isn't it?
I
That
know.
was a wee bit of the takeaway chat. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody.
Well, it's evening somewhere. Someone tuning in, it is night
Well,
time for them. There
Is
we
it
go.
evening, if it's
Indeed
evening
it
in
is.
Kazakhstan, is it? Is it?
Potentially.
For sure. I know, it feels like it, doesn't it? I was saying this on, I've seen this somewhere earlier. I think I was on recording stuff or whatever over the weekend. No, I was live last night with my pal, I think it was, but I seen Brendan yesterday in the hot weather, so that was just a funny
Was
wee.
he wearing a tie?
No, he wasn't. No, no ties to be seen.
He's sending out messages.
I think he had his belt on, but that was just a wee kind of funny worlds colliding kind of thing. Just out and about with the family, driving by. There he is, side of the road, waving somebody down.
That was a bizarre. Quinny, sorry to jump in there. That was a bizarre post-match with him and Mulgrew, talking about ties and belts, and like, I really quite liked it because it showed another side of him that he was just gone. This is like, he's not taking himself seriously. That's I quite like that. Like, he'll just.
Have we started taking him more seriously than we should? I think that's the question, because obviously Charlie Mulgrew loves a bit of patter and he's a wind-up merchant and all that, and it was very like low key. But I think when Brendan was actually talking about it, he just found it ridiculous, didn't he? That people were looking at belts and ties, and he even mentioned last season. And by the way, we were guilty of this. We did speak about this. I put out a post saying who wore it better. I had Ange in his jumper and I had Brendan in his jumper, all tongue in cheek.
I remember what last year when I was on, Paul, gone like that. He's wearing a jumper. And it completely freaked me out when I saw him standing on the touchline with a jumper on. I'm going, that's unusual, that. That's just...
People were saying that the other week when Quinny and I done the Adidas kit chat on This Is Acsom, and they were saying, oh, I've never seen you wearing a Celtic top. And it's like, well, you know, when I'm doing this, generally speaking, I probably won't wear a Celtic jersey. However, there is one behind me. I know that Quinny's already put in his competition entry because he loves this jersey. And even just when I look at it now, Quinny, the biggest issue for me is everything just blends in. We can't barely see the Adidas. We can barely see the Celtic crest. There is loads to talk about here. Yeah, so Brendan, he threw a bit of cold water on all the theories and all the conspiracies. And it's like, Brendan Rodgers, it's 2025. This is the internet. Don't take it too seriously, my friend. But yes, So you seen him yesterday. Beautiful weather we had over the weekend. Before we get stuck into the Celtic chat, a big shout out to everybody who joined us over the weekend. I was in Alness, first time I've ever been. And then I was in Nairn. And then last night, and we're going to touch on it because it was hands down the best night I've ever been involved in. It was a full house, Kev. It was a beautiful night. It was a beautiful night in Glasgow, and the vibe was tremendous, and it was Manny. And people might say, well, Jim Orr said to me last week, I've never really listened to much of Manny's stuff, so I'm not sure if I want to come along. He then spent a day or two tuning into things like the Stone Roses and Primal Screen. He said, yeah, I'm going to come along and listen to this. But the chat, Kev, yeah, very Stone Roses heavy, of course it was. But we spoke about things like politics, the fact that, you know, the Roses were a political band, not scared to stand up for what they believed in. That moved us on to Kneecap. He got a rousing round of applause for what he said about Kneecap and what they've been standing up for. And obviously we touched on things like Celtic. I'll just give you a wee flavour of it. At the end of the night, Manny was doing a DJ set. That was the plan. But Manny brought his CDs, and the guys in the venue had a system that was not compatible. So it actually ended up with Kevin Graham on the stage dancing like a fish. It's the only way I could describe it, Kev, but it was good. And Manny says, it's maybe a good job I'm not there because I was going to open the set with Come Out You Black and Tans. So that was the kind of night it was with Manny. Big shout out to all the guys who came from the Manny CSC in Blantyre. And one of those guys went home with a signed Screamadelica guitar. So, Kev, before I bring Acsom in, Skin, I think his name is. Big shout out to Skin and the boys. It was a fantastic night at Celtic. It was Ireland. It was politics. It was all of these things and more. And Resurrection, big shout out to the boys who played an amazing 1 hour set of Stone Roses' iconic classics. But Kev, you enjoyed yourself up there, I think. You were playing a wee bit of Northern Soul. You were doing your thing. First time you've ever done a bit of DJing, and we're going to see it again?
I actually quite enjoyed it. It was obviously it wasn't working out the way it was, and I just went up there. But anybody that can get away with playing the Sex Pistols in Billy Ocean, I think I got away with it.
You certainly did.
How can I go for Pretty Vacant to Billy Ocean? I mean, I think I managed to get away with it quite well, actually. It was a great night. Andy and Pat were there. I've seen them in the comments. So great to meet you boys. It was a really, really good night in Glasgow. Manny was superb. One of the best nights I've had. And it was good.
And the thing is, Kev, we are going to be announcing a few others for the rest of the year. There will be ex-Celts. There's nothing wrong with doing a wee bit of diversion here and there, a bit of diversity, but Manny's worth it. He was phenomenal, and he's a proper Celtic fan. He loves Celtic, and it comes down to his Irish roots. There was a great interview in the Celtic View, just, the summer edition, which jumped on the kind of Oasis vibe, Kev. And there's a great interview with Manny in that Celtic View where he talks about his Irish roots and the fact that his mother's family came from a tiny wee place in Ireland, and the fact was that there was another family there that they took in. They took this other family in, and when they emigrated over eventually to Manchester, it turns out that one of the families was the Mountfields, the other family was Johnny Marr's mum. So Manny's mum took in Johnny Marr's mum over in Ireland, and then they ended up producing two of the greatest bands the world has ever seen.
I think that's what came through, Paul. One of the things, we were a wee bit worried doing it as an Acsom night, but Manny he could have done it as a Celtic night with Manny.
You could have.
He wasn't a sort of token Tim.
No, you're right. He knew the history.
He knew everything, so...
He spoke about Jimmy Johnson's number 7 shorts. He'd done things like that. Big Pally Brian McClare as well. So no, I loved every minute of it, and thanks everybody for coming out. We raised a good few quid for Maggie's cancer charity as well, because obviously Manny sadly lost his wife to breast cancer over the last few years. So we raised a few quid for charity as well, which is always important. And here we go. There he is. It's Acsom. Listen, I don't mind you being late because we can get the big welcome. We can get the big build up. Massive week for us this week. Acsom, how are you feeling about it?
Good. I enjoyed Friday night. It was better fare than the previous two games, I thought. A bit more to be encouraged about. I thought it was a good atmosphere. I thought the intensity and tempo was pretty good. Still some concerns, obviously, that we all know about in the forward areas, but I think we looked a lot more at it. Kieran Tierney continuing to be our best player so far this season in all positions, really, in terms of defence and attack. So I'm feeling relatively confident. Obviously, we've still got all our kind of concerns, and it's looking more and more likely we're going into this qualifier with the squad as it is. But that being said, I feel confident that we should be able to get it done. It's a huge week. It's just so quiet on the transfer front. I just can't see anything changing in the next couple of days. So we're going to go with what we've got and just hope it's enough to get us through the line.
No, absolutely. We're going to have a wee look at what went well on Friday night. But Kev, I'm going to come to you because I know that it's something that wouldn't have escaped your notice. There was quite a lot of chat, particularly online, about the boundary areas and the concourses. Kev, what do you think could be a conceivable reason for doing that?
I think they're trying to stop folk moving about, going in one part of the stadium and walking around, because if you're in that north stand, you can basically, up the top tier. I've done it myself. I've got a ticket for somewhere up the north stand and walked right round and went back to my seat. Especially if you're getting tickets, like if you've got season books and that, and you maybe want to go into your own seat, you can actually do it. So maybe to stop that. I didn't see a problem. I think they've only got the problem in the standing section, and the standing section gets a bit problematic, especially in the bigger games. You can see it's overcrowded because I'm above it, and you can actually tell that it is overcrowded. But I didn't see the point of them being heavy-handed. The stewards didn't really know what they were doing. I walked out the North Stand, and I walk underneath the North Stand to go back to the bus park, and they stopped me and they says the gates were shut. I went in, but the gates were open. Like, so they wanted me to walk right round. I didn't understand that. I mean, there was 43,000 there. By the time I got to the stadium, it was quiet. There was no point. There was no need to stop me going that way. I do not know. It's the same way all the empty seats and that. They didn't want to do a ticket exchange. It just seemed to be making it as difficult as possible for folk to actually get to the stadium and like do things. That's when you saw the stuff online. There's folk going, I've done this. There was guys saying, I've done this for 20 odd years and now I'm getting stopped actually walking that way. Mm-hmm. It wasn't communicated well. Or seemingly was an email. I can't remember seeing an email saying that was going to happen. So, it's another faux pas, and we're good at that. We're good at annoying our own fans. They are really, really good at doing that. Again, I want the ticket exchange in place.
You need it. Really do want a modern football club needs it, Kev.
Like, I sent you a picture. The row next to me was completely empty.
And you were getting a bit worried, weren't you, about that? The fact that it was just your seat surrounded by empty green seats.
But I kind of talk rubbish, So maybe
at the game as well.
at the game as well, and I checked, and all of them were available for public sale.
Right.
And I'm going, so why? Folk are going on. I want a ticket. I want to that. And you've got a night on a Friday night. It was a great night, and there's only 43,000 there, And I know a lot of the guys for Ireland can't get across. Some of the season tickets holders couldn't make it, but you've got to have a ticket exchange and you've got to make it easier and cheaper for folk to actually go to the football.
We are behind the times when it comes to that. You know, I see Celtic as a football club, Quinny, who should be at the top when it comes to things like that, because in terms of expense, it's fairly inexpensive to get a lot of that stuff right. I mean, communication is basically free. You can communicate with your fans. I think Celtic on their mailing list, I spoke to someone who was involved with a football club, told me they had over 1 million people on a mailing list. I mean, that is sensational for a football club to communicate with the fans. You've got platforms, you've got social media. It's so easy to do it. I'm not going to start off with a negative because Friday night was a very good performance. I agree with Acsom. I think there was a much better energy about the performance on Friday night. We've got the European game on Wednesday. I think we all understand where we are when it comes to transfers, etc. Although we'll touch on some of the links, Quinny. So this is not about being negative, but some fans do have this kind of view on it. On a Permo says, board talking to fans is not really a thing. I'm not sure I agree with that, right? But see, if it wasn't a thing, it should be anyway. It should be. So we can't just say, well, this is the way it is. This is normal, and you shouldn't expect any more. I think it's so easy now, Quinny, to communicate with fans. And I don't mean phoning you up and sending you a Christmas card, right? I'm not expecting that. But I'm talking about the communication. The platforms are there. We've seen recently Hearts doing it, on a live stream where there was a presentation from Tony Bloom. We have seen it fairly recently from the CEO of Hibs coming in saying, look, you guys are our priority. We're going to communicate with you. It is important, Quinny, and it is something we need to do better, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And, I've been quite quick to highlight as well, that if you do look around Europe as well, even obviously it's good to hear Hibs did that. I wasn't really aware of that with myself, but the Hearts one made some headway. Made some headlines because of the, using it on YouTube as well. It's also a bit of a new thing to Scottish football, and it's funny in this day and age where Martindale gets asked how he keeps in touch with an American owner, it just shows like how disconnected people can be sometimes from actual reality, like mobile phones or whatever, YouTube, the internet, just things that everyone uses now. It's not really a niche thing or a social media thing or a kids thing or anything like that. That is like YouTube is like the most viewed thing in the world, like more than anything. It's more TV than TV at this point for a lot of people, and so yeah, it's great to see that, but it's very much, and I think that just shows you like there's no rule book around this, regulations or anything. It's really just down to individual decision. Like if they want to do it, they could. There's nothing stopping them setting up today and doing it tomorrow. Doing it. We've had one or two wee things from them over the years. Like it's normally like, is it end of year? It's like an end of year kind of statement they make, isn't it? And they announce financials, and you normally get a wee snippet in between like 2 or 3 talking heads. You'll get them just talking about the headlines of we sold this player and we made this much money and we built this and we're started breaking ground on the Barrowfield Centre and whatever. But so yeah, it's like Bayern Munich, for example. Like I know I talk about Spain quite a lot. Spain's very, very good at it. But the Bayern Munich manager, not manager, sorry, the kind of director of football, his name's Max Eberl. I'm not really too sure how you actually pronounce it. But like if you YouTube or Google search him, you will get a million hits. The guy's in the media all the time, telling you what's going on and what they're thinking about, and you know, necessarily like giving anything away or whatever. But that's his decision. You know, he just wants to do it. And also Germany's a bit different because of the fan ownership, how that works and stuff. You know, but if they wanted to do it, they could. It's just, I think it's at this point, it's just that's not their style. They're not going to change it.
And so there's a lot of things within that where it's not talking about nickels and dimes. There's a lot of things within the football club that would be interesting to the fans, Acsom. I mean, we've got obviously Paul Tisdale doing fans forums presentation. That would have been interesting to fans. We've got Sean Maloney being appointed as a pathway manager. This is a guy who's been a football manager in his own right, and all of a sudden he's a pathway manager. Yeah. I mean, that could be something that would actually pique the interest Celtic fans, as well as obviously the vision, you know, having the vision. I do feel, and as I say, at the you know, absolutely not for the reason of just having a dig, because I'm feeling very positive about the football side of things, other than the recruitment at the moment this week, and I just feel that there are these opportunities. I'll give you a wee example. Last week, we were invited to the press conference for the women's game coming up at the weekend there. So we duly obliged, and we had a representative at that particular press conference. So the game's been and gone, and we've not received any of the content. So you ask yourself the question, right? So what is the point in us being there, right, if we don't get any content from it? What is the point? Because what you're then doing is you are filling a room of fan media to do the job of actually publicising the game for the club only. So even that, there's a disconnect there. I actually feel as though the disconnect, and I mean, it's probably the only thing that you could compare them with. But see, the disconnect right now between the fans and the club, I think it's at its worst level since the old board. I don't think there's been such a disconnect. Now, the old board and the current board, night and day, if you want to talk about business credentials, how to make money, the player trading model, etc. But in terms of the disconnect, Acsom, I've never felt so disconnected from them.
Yeah, and at a time where, as Quinny mentioned, there's so many avenues for connection. You know, everything's now social media. We've got fan media presence. But you asked the question, what is the point in us being there? I don't think we want fan media there. I think this is something that obviously got implemented. Was it the season after the COVID year? I think that was the first season, wasn't it? Ange's first season, maybe. Don Mackay maybe had something to do with that. And I think it's just something they've kind of had to keep on going since, but I don't think they particularly want it. You know, we sometimes get access, obviously, to these press conferences. We're not exactly dealt with in the most kind of friendliest, welcoming manner at times. You almost get the sense that they don't want you there. They're just kind of ticking a box now. There's so many different things that they can do to engage with fan media more. We spoke about it before at kit launches, you know, get fan media involved there. The communications in general, whether it's to do with stadium infrastructure, the stuff about Kev, I'm the same as you. I heard there was chat about an email going round warning people that this was going to be the case. I had a check back. I didn't get any kind of email. So everything just seems to be behind the curve in terms of how Celtic are dealing with things, both on and off the pitch at the moment, in terms of recruitment that we spoke about, but even just simple basics like communications or getting the banners all set for the start of a season. Simple basics, but we're not going really doing very well at it.
But what's the sign in the dressing room? World class basics. Is that the sign in the dressing room? Maybe it should be in the offices and the boardroom and stuff like that as well. You get that right, everything else follows.
Yeah, if there's a culture that needs to be throughout the club, Kev, it needs to be in every department of the club.
I was lucky enough, or I'm lucky enough to have dealings with the club for almost a decade. And when they had, as we called them, the banners of shame, when Ronnie Dyler was there and the top tier of the East Stand was closed, their communication was great with fans.
Went through the roof, Kev. Yep.
Aye, because they wanted us there. They wanted us to promote them. They wanted us to actually get people into the stadium. And the day it changed was the day that we appointed Brendan Rodgers, and 12,000 turned up to his unveiling. And from that point on, nothing, because they didn't need us anymore. They didn't need us. They had 60,000 there. Didn't need us anymore. They didn't need to speak to us. And that's where we are. And again, we're wanting like the stadium extended and stuff like that, the main stand done up. They can point to Friday night as well and go, well, there was a public sale and there's only 43,000 turned up. And I don't think they can.
I don't think they can, because the developments would be based on season ticket sales. It wouldn't be based on one-off public sales. So the thing with that was a decent crowd, Kev. Watching the game 20 minutes before kickoff, the place was empty.
I know.
And then, everybody ends up, and it was a decent turnout for public sale. But if there was ever going to be a long-term plan with the stadium, it would need to be based on that season ticket tranche of cash that comes in at the beginning of the campaign.
And the thing is, Paul John, right now with the season ticket, there's a huge wait list. We've got about 4 or 5 family members on the wait list. I'm sure many others have. They know that the demand is still there to see Celtic. They know that the kits are all going to sell because all the youngsters want, the first kit, the second kit, the third kit. So they know they're going to continue to get away with it. You'll see a big crowd on Wednesday. And then, again, we might qualify with the squad that we've got. And then, again, it'll just kind of, they'll know that they'll sell out the Champions League packages. So in their heads, they've got no reason to change their strategy, because they don't think the way us fans do, or as the manager does, about improving the club in terms of on the pitch. For them, it's all about the business side of things, and they'll see that as justified if we qualify next week, after these 2 legs.
The thing with that as well, absolutely, if you find a working formula that creates results for you, that's great. But progress and ambition is different, isn't it? You need to do things differently to take it to another level. You can just maintain, and this is the word that Brendan himself used, you can maintain that and say, well, we've got a formula here that works. Financially, this works here. So what's the point in changing it? I actually think in terms of the board, right, it's about being out of touch. It's about being out of touch, Quinny. I mean, you look at things like what we do well. The stadium tour, for example. So we're like top of the pile, aren't we, in European football, and we're always getting accolades for that. And the people who actually do the tours are great. Absolutely fantastic folk. I've had the pleasure of meeting a few of them. Very, very good. And they love the football club, and they do that really, really well. But see all the other side of it, like Kev says, ticket exchange. Find out who does it really, really well and go and visit them and implement it, Kev. I mean, you, for a number of years, have been speaking to the guys at the Anfield Wrap, Kev, right? And you sometimes report back to me with the stuff that the club does. And like I visited Anfield a couple of years ago, I was blown away with the state of the place in a good way. I was blown away with it. It was unbelievable. So it's all about just learning from what other clubs do, because the implementation of all these things isn't like going and signing an £11 million player, is it? I mean, the cost really isn't that great to implement all these things that would, I think, build your engagement and your relationship with the fans. Because and at some point in the future, this may be the case again, we've all seen it in our lifetime, when things don't go well with Celtic, that's when you're starting to clutch. Build a relationship now, Kev, because if you do that, then it's a lot easier to then explain why things haven't worked out when that happens.
I feel for John Paul Taylor, a really, really decent guy who seems to be working with one hand tied behind his back, a bit like Brendan. I think we've got what Rodgers says about maintaining it, and I think we actually see that way what the business side and the communication with the fans that we've got is, this is the way we've always done it, and this is the way it's going to stay, and that's it. They're not going to change it. Everything's stale in the club. Everything's really stale. The engagement stale. It's not there. Even the wee things like I seen mentioned in the banners. That should be a sacking offence for somebody. First day of the season and they're not sorted. That is what happened there. Everything's just stale. And I'm not saying folk should sell up and stuff like that, but maybe just needs a wee bit of, dare I say, Don Mackay came in and he didn't last very long because he maybe had ideas to change things, So, but you don't know. Everything's just stale. I think the squad's stale as well. Brendan says a really good thing. I maintain, and we've actually just been maintaining it, because we turn up, we sell 60,000 season tickets, we buy merch, and that it's easy. It's easy to get sponsorship deals when we're ploughing the money into the club. So they feel like they didn't need to engage, but it's. I think they just need I think it's stale. We just need a wee bit of fresh blood.
You do, fresh ideas
in every department.
I don't think you're far off the mark when it comes to Don Mackay coming in. And by the way, but it's not as though he's that guy who has become a star because he's not here, but he clearly came in with different ideas. We've spoken to quite a few people who were involved. We've spoken to Don Mackay himself, but obviously at some point in the future, we hope to have an interview with him. I always look at this, right, here we go. Here's the music vibe. It's not even a Thursday. I love this quote, right, because I just think that, and this was obviously the man, Bowie, always go a little further into the water than you feel you're capable of being in. Go a little bit out of your depth. And when you don't feel that your feet are quite touching the bottom, you're just about in the right place to do something exciting. Don't be safe. Now, I actually think, Quinny, that we suffer a wee bit from looking back to what happened in the early 90s at Celtic, looking back to what happened in 2012, and always having that really cautious attitude to things, Quinny. Like, I'm running with the tagline today. It's like, right, Brendan, you're not getting the PIN number until we qualify for Europe. And you know, that's the only way that I can understand why we would not show a wee bit more ambition in this window. It's lined up for us just to, you know, go forth and improve and progress from last season. It just feels as though we're far too safe. I don't want to use the word conservative, even though some might say that is exactly what the board are. We're far too safe, aren't we? We're very risk averse.
Yeah, it feels like it, which is why like some of the transfer rumours this summer have been maybe a wee bit more exciting and interesting, because some of the guys we have been linked with have been a bit more recognisable, a wee bit more like players you would want to see us lined up with, rather than what we've brought in previous windows. But yeah, it's very much a case of, you know, there's nothing stopping us at this point, you know, and I definitely am drinking the same tea as your boy Bowie there as well. That's the sort of way I think Celtic should be operating, thinking. And you know, I'm not going to mention any other clubs or anything, so I can be bad for that sometimes. But like, there is so much around us now that should give the people that work at Celtic, like, not even inspiration or anything like that, but even just a little bit of courage to go, well, do you know what? There's other people that are making these moves as well, and it's not blowing up in their face. Their stadium isn't, you know, getting swallowed up into the ground, and the fans are stopping showing up or anything horrible like that. You know, the fans. Which is, you know, again, people are talking about CEOs and company structures and all that. I've been following the chat as we've been going through today as well. And if you're thinking about it in the whole business perspective, you know, you've got to satisfy your customers, you know, and if everyone is screaming out for, you know, insert new product from whatever company you want to think about, then the company tends to go and make it, you know, or go and develop it or whatever. You know, they don't go, let's just not do that. So, you're talking about merch tickets. It's hard for them to sell more tickets, obviously, with the exception of like Friday night, because once the place is sold out on season books, that's pretty much it, isn't it? But for all the other stuff, that's and it kind of ties into the YouTube thing a little bit as well, you know. But Celtic is a massive, and again, someone in the chat said that the board take the fans for granted, and I think that's really what it does boil down to. Because if you're to take yourself out of Celtic for a minute and put yourself into basically any other club in Scotland and basically the majority of clubs in world football, every season it's a question. How many season tickets they'll sell? They don't know how many strips they're really going to sell. Will one take off, perhaps, you know, etc., etc. Whereas Celtic is such a massive club where so many things are just default. You know, we are going to sell the home kit extremely well every season. We are going to do season tickets extremely well every season. TV money, it is what it is, but we know we're getting, again, even our TV money, I know it's crap, right? But there's, you know, there's still like maybe 50 leagues out there that get less or whatever. So it's not like, again, it's better than some places. That's much of a silver lining. But my point is it's very much taken for granted. And you want to see the club now go into that little place where your toes come off the ground a little bit. And it's right, okay, there's enough of a cushion there. You've got your rubber rings on your arms, or whatever the analogy they need to have for it would be. Spend the money, get the guys in, wash away these games in the qualifiers, get into the group, the stage proper, and from there, you know, like, grow the fan base around the world, because there'll be a big team to cheer on in the Champions League, which is where those types of fan bases are growing. You know, it's not from away to Ross County or at home to Falkirk on a Friday night where you grow the fan in that regard. You know, so.
No, you're spot on with it. Absolutely. It's your hardcore in these games, Quinny, but to build the fan base, you're right, it is these more kind of box office. To keep the analogy of water going, Kev, get your memory banks ticking along. Keep the water analogy going here, because obviously we started that off with David Bowie. Some people have said we're like a big cruise ship trying to turn rather than a speedboat. Everything happens and it's not happening dynamically enough. Are we just basically just cruising about? Are we on a pedalo? Have we fallen asleep at the wheel? All these water analogies. Are we staring over the abyss, the edge of the abyss? Yeah, we could go on and on. Sorry, Kev, you were going to jump in and say something there.
What Quinny was saying there about us taking for granted. I mean, Magners has disappeared as a sponsor and we've not replaced them. But it's just quietly just went away. So are they unable to get a sponsor for the back of the jersey now? Why have they not been replaced? It's how much money was that worth? Probably so they have lost money there, but you're going, well, surely if we're in such a good position, there'll be somebody wanting to put a sponsor in the back of your jersey. But it was just quiet. Magners just quietly disappeared.
I think, and I'm not trying to be fair, but I think for balance, what it was, Kev, at the end of the Magners deal, obviously we knew Daffabet were coming in. We're going for bevy to gambling there, which is just modern day football. It's not the best. But at that point, they were offered an option. So it's when the deal's up. So when's the Daffabet deal up? And what you might find is that Daffabet are offered the option if a new company goes on the front of the jersey. I think it's something along those lines. But to be honest, I'd need to check what the Daffabet length of contract is. I think it's quite a length of contract. So Magners were given that, all right, you could take this option for the back of the jersey. Whereas until you get that crossover, you probably will have a few seasons.
No, that I want a sponsor in the back of the jersey, but it just sort of kind of disappeared. So maybe Daffabet are covering what we were getting.
Yeah.
Maybe that's to be the only sponsor, but it was just
no, it's a point. It goes under the radar like James McCarthy leaving the football club, didn't it? By the way, Happy Monday Club. I normally have my Happy Mondays mug, but today of all days, we're in the Manny CSC today, so fool's gold in there as well. There's maybe a wee story in there somewhere. Joe Hamilton, afternoon troops, a big week for Celtic and us. If it doesn't go well, big changes must come before we ever get an elite manager again. I think even if it does go well, Joe, big changes are required and they have to be implemented, obviously, before the end of the transfer window. But Acsom, leading with the tagline today, I think that the onus on this game this week is huge, because if we do get a cushion, and we'll be talking about that, what that cushion should be, we shouldn't take any longer, right? We should actually use a wee bit of a calculated risk and say, right, we're 3-0 up. Let's push the button here. Let's go. Yes. We can't wait any longer. Are we capable of doing that as a football club, Acsom, do you think? Or are we far too safe when it comes to things like this? We're going to wait until we go to Kazakhstan first.
Yeah, I think history suggests the latter. I think, we're far too cautious. Didn't we win 5-0 in Rodgers' second season last time in in the home leg against Astana? And then I don't think we did much in between that season either, although Paddy Roberts may have came back for his kind of second spell on the day of the second leg, from what I recall, which I'm sure with about 70 minutes they were probably regretting, because I think we were 4-1 down in the away leg in the Astana. So yeah, I think they're going to just wait until the tie's over. Knowing them, they'll probably wait until the draw's done, which will leave one night maybe. I think the history suggests that they're so risk averse. They don't do anything proactively. The fact is, I've seen some of the comments, and you see on Twitter and on the phone-ins, a lot of people saying, we need to stop panicking. We should have more than enough to get through this tie and wait until the end of the window before we judge it. I do not buy into that at all. Even if we win this tie 7-0 in aggregate, I still think it's a symbolic state of affairs that we're going into a Champions League playoff and we're an injury away from having to play players out of position. We're already having to play players like Nygren out wide when one of our wingers have to go off, who is James Forrest, who's still starting for us in 2025 and still probably one of our better players. Our front options to come on and change a game if we're struggling away in Kazakhstan is Johnny Kenny and Shin Yamada. Again, symbolic state of affairs. So regardless of how this tie does end up, I don't think it's acceptable, and I don't think that should be something that afterwards, whether it's the board or fans who have kind of, backing this kind of waiting game, can stand up and say, it's all worked out, because again, you're playing with fire, and again, you're not showing you're a big club. You look at Club Brugge, Now, I've kind of read into a bit of their kind of work. They've lost a lot of big players from their successful campaign last season. They've brought in a lot of money, and they are having to do a bit of a rebuild. So they aren't, hitting the ground running this season by all accounts, but they've still replaced the players that have left. And as Brendan said a couple of times, it's simple arithmetic. You lose players in key positions, you replace them, and we've not done that going into such a massive game. So yeah, I don't think anything will change until that final whistle in Kazakhstan, and then we'll see where we're at.
Yeah, unfortunately, I agree with that. Before we wrap up the show today, we'll be speaking about some of the names that have been linked to the club. We'll be looking at them and thinking how likely they are. But let's talk about some of the high points of Friday night. And I think that there was a different energy to the game. Quinny, I'll come to you first on this one. So I'm going to start with Dane Murray. Dane Murray's a player I think who's been dreadfully unlucky at Celtic. He really has. Through circumstance, he was kind of thrown into that Midtjylland game, Ange Postecoglou's introduction to Celtic, really, because he near beat on getting sent off, and then he started the second leg, didn't he? But horrible injuries. Brendan Rodgers has really taken a shine to this kid, and he's spoken about him, and it looks as though he wants to nurture him. It's like this season would be a season of Rodgers nurturing this player. He's been given the new deal. He starts his first game of this season, and he scores a goal. I thought he looked really commanding. Brendan Rodgers said there was this one mistake that he made all night. He's going to do that. He's young. He's not had a great deal of senior football so far. And I think that he is definitely one of the guys. We keep crying out for them. Quinny, when are we going to, get a player who graduates from the academy, staples their name into the side, and a centre-half as well? It's been a while since we produced one of them. I know Stephen Welsh is still in and about the squad. Dane Murray, the real deal for you, Quinny?
Yeah, I liked him a lot. I think it was one of the big surprises of the team sheet was that it was him that was playing and not JSP, because Brendan's pre-match press conference, he'd said it'll be a strong team, but it was with one eye on the Livingston game as well because of how he's going to need to manage everyone. So he wants people that have joined us late to get up to tempo and all the rest of it. So I thought that kind of lent itself to Yamada and JSP coming into the game. Engels and McCowan felt like quite, painted by numbers that would probably work out that way. But Murray was definitely, along with Kenny, the shock kind of surprise that they were on to start the game. And it's really interesting because with the JSP signing from Man City, it was one of the things that I think we'd maybe spoke about it here as well, that I was kind of, wondering why we've done it, is to give Dane Murray a kind of yardstick in training on if the elite youth player from down south against you. These are the kind of numbers you need to hit. This is the sort of person you need to beat out in training, sort of thing, if you're not just going to become a Celtic first team player but actually fulfill your potential, because Rodgers, as you've said, clearly does believe a lot in him. And I thought he was really slick. There was a few moments in the game where he's taking the ball and he's got a really quick 2 or 3 touches, ball gets under control and he fires it into McGregor. Always really knew where he was in the pitch. Played a lot of games in pre-season with Trusty, and I think that really helped the whole match because those two guys maybe played 3 or 4 times together, I think. So I thought he was a quiet standout, and it's great to see, he's actually kind of getting a chance to bleed through. And it wasn't just he was a centre-back and he did all right. We've seen Welsh do that. I think he was a little bit slicker, a little bit shinier.
Yeah, and again, it's one of these ones I would love to have the confidence of, rather than going to Man City and bringing in a centre-half, to playing our own centre-half. Acsom, how impressed have you been with Dane Murray so far?
Yeah, I think he looks, as Quinny said, very kind of solid and assured, confident lad. He's physically, very imposing as well. Great header. So yeah, I think there's definitely room for improvement. You can see that as well. But the fact that Rodgers rates him, he's given him game time. I think he's worth sticking around. And we've talked about Stephen Welsh. How many seasons have we had Welsh, and he's tried to break in, and he's just never, under any of the managers, really cemented that kind of run of games or ever looked like he's going to be the answer. So I think the challenge is there for Murray to prove that he can be, and from what I've seen so far, I like the look of him. Anyone I've spoke to as well, likewise. So yeah, I'm hoping to see more of him. I think he's someone that we can use, and overall, I'm quite happy with that kind of options that we've now got in the centre back areas. I think we're well stocked. Obviously, we've still to see GSP, but if he's as good as he sounds in terms of how highly rated he is, then yeah, we've got a good selection of options now.
Yeah, there's a certain thing. I think it's a modern football thing. You know, growing up in the kind of 80s, Kev, it was just natural for a young.
Oh, the Wi-Fi in Fife has disappeared.
Of course.
I
was thinking, I'll just kind of say this while he's coming back. I was thinking earlier today when I was out and about walking, thinking about the show today. This is maybe the best defence I think Celtic have ever had, really, in my lifetime. Like the whole back four, the goalkeeper. Dane Murray's a quiet addition to that now as well in that kind of second string. But even Scales included, Scales and Trusty, I think the defence is as good as it's been, really.
And I really like the look of. On you go, sorry.
You're laughing at my signal dropping or the OCD that
you I'm laughing at your OCD that you had to move me across there.
I'm Tierney and you're AJ, right? That's the way we're going to run with this. Sorry, guys. I don't know. Obviously, I'm in a third world country. I'm in Fife, and my Wi-Fi has just dropped out. So apologies for that. But the guys are so professional that they'll just run in my absence. In fact, they're probably glad that I dropped out there. So sorry about that. Quinny, that's an interesting point now about the solidity of the defence. You know, if it's our full strength defence, Kev, I am immensely, you know, confident in that defence. You know, and that's obviously Casper Schmeichel, Alistair Johnston, Kieran Tierney, Cameron Carter-Vickers, and who? I'm not sure who the other guy is. Is it Scales? Is it Trusty? I'm not quite sure who the strongest left-sided defender is at the moment. Are you as confident in that defence as Quinny is, Kev?
I don't think it's the best I've seen in my lifetime.
What would be then? What would be, do you think, mate?
Well, any time I'm picking a Celtic 11, Paul Elliott's always in it. But then again, Mark McNally was alongside him right enough for long periods of times. But you've had Denier, you've had Van Dijk. They two
I love that partnership.
They were absolutely fabulous pairing.
Realistic and Tierney as well, wouldn't it? That's a pretty good back four. Who's the keeper then? Gordon.
That's your weak link, isn't it? As good as he was, Quinny, I think that defence, it's quality. You imagine that defence with Casper Schmeichel behind it. No, it's an interesting discussion.
Then you've got the three big boys that Martin O'Neill had as well. That were there as
Douglas.
well.
The goalie
and everything here, Clint.
There's a trend developing.
Paul's went again. I think in regards Paul was talking about he's
what a piece frame he's been done.
That's a great style.
You're back.
I think we always want to see guys coming through the academy, as you say. I think Derek White and guys like that coming through. I like Murray's physicality. I think he's got a decent enough pace, and his distribution's quick. He moves the ball very, very quick. But I think it's clear that he needs games, and I don't know whether a loan would be better for him this season for him to get those games, because I reckon that. JSP is probably further down the line in him and development wise, so he would probably go up the pecking order there, so I would like to see Murray going to get games, so I would like him to go on loan actually, because I think he needs it. I think he does need that loan. I mean, he's 22
level than Queen's Park. I agree with
you. I think and it's the same way Kenny. I think he needs to go on loan again.
We'll come to that, Kev. What we'll do, just in case I drop out, we'll work through the areas of the team with one eye on Wednesday night, obviously based on all the performances and in particular on Friday night. So that if I drop out, when I come back in, don't laugh because you're getting me paranoid, guys. Every time I come back in, you're laughing and I'm not sure what you have said. So I'll come to you first. Acsom, let's start with the back five. Talk us through how you would start on Wednesday night. Is there any near misses and why you would set up with the five that you're going to pick?
Yeah, I think 4 of the 5 we're all probably going to be unanimous on in terms of Schmeichel in goals, AJ right back, Kieran Tierney left back, and then CCV. I would partner CCV with Trusty. I think Trusty's had a really sharp start to the season. I think that his pace, especially in Europe, I think he's had some of his best performances in the Champions League. And I think Scales still, for me, is kind of slack in his passing sometimes. I would prefer Trusty, but I think the manager will go with Scales. But my own preference would be Trusty. I I think he's going to have a big season ahead. I think between him, JSP, Scales will all kind of be battling it out. We've seen with Carter Vickers as well, with his injury record and stuff. I don't think he'll be playing every minute of every game this season. So I think we've got good options, but I think the strongest two at the moment for me on form is going to be Carter Vickers and Trusty. And with the two fullbacks playing the way they're playing, as Quinny says, it's a pretty formidable back line.
I think Paul's dropped out again. What I would actually say about Wednesday night, on Wednesday night, but going back to Friday night, that I thought Alistair Johnson was superb on Friday night.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting hearing the interview with Alistair Johnson when he's saying he's had a look at KT and went, I should be able to do that on the right-hand side as well, because I think he actually thought KT was bigger, like height-wise and physicality-wise, and he's had a look at KT, says, I should be able to do that on the right-hand side. So Alistair Johnson was good. I think, Quinny, I'll put it to you, I don't know if Paul's here. Is he here?
I'm here. I was just in a resting face, Kev.
You can more about the football coaching side with me. I think that Rodgers will go with Scales, because then after 60 minutes he'll move him to left back, and he's playing Scales to get him up to the pace of the game, then to make that move rather than bringing in Scales to go at left back. That's what I just think, because we haven't got another left back.
It's really interesting. Mura's not in the squad, is he? Either, which is interesting. I tend to agree with Acsom, Quinny, and also we spoke on Friday night with the Celtic World Order boys, and the point was made very well that Trusty's played his best football for us in Europe. Do you think that will also be in Brendan Rodgers' mind?
I think you've got the perfect situation with Scales and Trusty right now, where they are like right on each other. There's really not much between them. You are really splitting hairs, I think, to really say one of them is better than the other. I've been really enthused by the way they've both started the season. I think Scales has been brilliant at the start of the year. I know he's had a few slack passes in the Aberdeen game or whatever it was, which people have jumped on him for, which is fine. That's, but again, in context, like, see what we jump on Scales and Trusty for. The next person that you go and buy for however much that costs, that's the only thing they need to do to be better. It's like such a small thing. These guys are killing it in so many other areas, in terms of being in the ball and stuff back and whatever. And I think Trusty, like against Falkirk, and when he's come off the bench, it might have been in the Aberdeen game as well, I think he's just getting across the pitch so well. I think he probably will go Trusty, although I totally agree with everything you said, Kev, and echo it. And I think that's probably the logic way. I think, like, if from what we've seen him already do this season, I think that's what he will do. But I don't know. I think from seeing Trusty, if I was to pick one of the two of them for Wednesday, I would take Trusty on Wednesday over Scales. But that's just because I think, he's just looked like he's really broke through. He had a great preseason. I think we would all agree as well. And you're going to bring Scales come off the bench at left back, and I agree with you. I think he did that last week or the week before, or the last two games even, by sliding Trusty in between him and Vickers to place Tierney. But I think we've seen him come off the bench at left back on Friday, and I think that could, it's like the either or situation. Managing the left back, really, isn't it? Is what will decide it, and I think he'll go with Scales off the bench.
I think I do think Scales will start. I think you noticed when he came off the bench on Friday, I seen we lost a goal on the left hand side right away.
Yeah, straight away. I do agree with your reasoning, Kev. As much as I would rather Trusty, I can't see. I can see Rodgers going with the Scales option for that reason. It means he's not having to switch two positions then at that point. So I think he'll probably stick with Scales. Scales has started all the games so far, in terms of the league games as well. So I think that's his preferred option at the moment. But what Trusty's doing is giving him, food for thought. I think we can all agree he's looked good, and I think it's going to be a big season for him. But I think Rodgers will go with Scales. I think that seems to be his preferred option.
So, Quinny, what about the midfield then? There's a couple of decisions to get made in the middle of the park. So you've got Engels, Negrin. Engels had a decent game on Friday night, but you've got to remember it's just Falkirk. So what do you think Rodgers will do in the middle of the park?
I think it'll be this predictable as well. I think it'll be probably the Gren Hatate show in the middle with McGregor calling the shots from behind him. I think, again, with the comments he made pre-game and at Falkirk, I think McKibben and Engels will start Livingston. I could see that happening, quite easily. And I think, this game's about, I think we've all kind of mentioned it anyway, but everyone thinks and hopes and expects we go out to win the tie in the first game. And that's just the only midfield I think you've got to do that with.
I seem to agree with that.
Yeah. What did you think of Engels? I've heard quite a few mixed opinions on him. I thought he had a pretty good game. I thought his delivery was excellent from crosses. You know, it seems like he's really worked on that because nearly all of them were whipped in a perfect area. So and you've seen the kind of couple of chances we had from it, including the goal. So that's a real weapon. I don't know much about Kairat Almaty in terms of whether they're a kind of physical or imposing kind of side, but that's something to think about as well. And I thought he did look pretty sharp when he came on. Again, he performed some of his best games for us in the Champions League last season. So I don't know if it's as clear cut in terms of the Nygren or Engels. I think that's one I can see again. Rodgers maybe opting for Engels. Again, he's got that option to bring on Nygren as a wide player, so that might be in his thinking later in the game. So yeah, that I think we know that it'll be Hatate and McGregor. I think the third one, it's a bit of a toss of a coin for that one.
I thought Engels was okay. As you say, that his set piece delivery was absolutely fantastic. You have to have a look at it. The games that we've started, the midfield three seems to be that Rodgers is going to go with is Kalmak, Nygren and Hatate. Yeah. I don't expect the team that we're playing on Wednesday night to be very, very open. No. I think they've probably had a look at us. Acsom and went, they'll sit with probably a low block and try to frustrate us to make sure that it's still in the tie, going back to Kazakhstan. And if they've studied us well, they can see that we can struggle if we're going to move the ball quickly. So I think that midfield three will move the ball quicker and try to open them up quicker. We'll have got problems up front with the wings and stuff like that, but I think we need to move the ball. And this, I'm a bit wary of the stuff that folk are saying we need to go win the tie here. I think that they're maybe making light of the Kazakhs. Yeah. I'm worried about that.
I agree. Sorry, on you go, Quinny. I'll let you.
No, you go.
I was speaking to my nephew on the way back from the Falkirk game, and he was saying, I'm sure it'll be a comfortable tie. And if you look at the three times that we played teams from Kazakhstan, twice Astana and obviously Shakhtar Karagandhi, none of even the one where we win 5-0, it still ended up being a struggle at points in that second leg. We've not won in the three games over in Kazakhstan, and two of the other ones required last minute winners. So I don't think this will be a foregone conclusion. Obviously we'd love a 3-goal cushion to take over there. But I think if we go in, I agree with you, Kev. I think they'll be stuffy. They'll probably play a low block, try and contain us, frustrate us, knowing that our weakest area in the team right now is our attacking areas. And they'll just try and keep the score maybe down to 1 or 2 and then fancy their chances over there. So, yeah, for me, ideally you'd want 3 to feel really comfortable. But if you ask me right now, even 2-0 probably you would take. I don't know what other kind of people's views on that are. Hard to say because we don't really know too much about where they are and how good they are. They've obviously done well to get to this stage. 3 rounds of qualifying. That means that they're used to winning. So they'll be feeling good about themselves.
They're used to getting through 2-legged ties, Quinny, so they will fancy their chances, I think.
I totally get the whole don't write them off stuff because I've been in the stadium for Maribors and Moldas and Malmos and you name it, I've seen it. So I'm totally all about that. I get it. But, I think really for us where we're at, like being a Celtic player is like every game's a cup final for you. And that's the real way this game's going to be, for these guys. Probably the biggest game in the club's history or not too far away from it, I'd imagine. And, we're kind of used to that. And we do like that defense is rock solid. Up front's probably where we're still losing a wee bit of sleep and we're biting our nails when we see rumours and stuff like that. But the midfield is ticking. We've got good options from the bench as well. And it should be a case of quality kind of rising to the top in this one. And talking about the, your feet coming off the bottom, this is a game for that, for Adam Ida. I think this is a game where he needs to really hit the back of the net in this game for me. I don't think it's really in question. If he doesn't, I think it's a failure of a situation because he is the guy that's at the moment, the striker, values and all that stuff aside, it doesn't matter. He is the number 9. He's the one starting. And in years gone by, it's the forwards that gets through these games, you know. And yeah, there's been Forrest that's hit a goal and stuff like that, don't get me wrong, but you know, this is like minimum. If this guy's going to be a Celtic striker, he has to score and put us through in this tie. He has to do it.
Kev, I'm just going to double check that you can all hear me.
Yes.
I did that really technical thing, guys. I don't know if you're at the same level as me, where I switched everything off and put it back on, and then you just kind of, cross your fingers and hope that everybody can hear and see you. So what have I missed, Kev? Anything big? Any big news? Have you signed anybody?
No, we haven't. No, we haven't. No, what we've discussed the midfield, and we're just going to move to the front three. I think one of the things that I meant to say is I think it's very, very clear that Tierney's our best player going forward and defending. He was superb against Falkirk the other night there, and when we're facing a low block, I think having Tierney as an extra option on that wing, I think he's basically playing as a winger, and when he does that wee drop of the shoulder, you saw it for the goal against Aberdeen, you saw it the other night there against Falkirk. That's something that we didn't have last season, I think, when we're facing a low block. But centre forward is a worry. Unlike Rodgers, I like my centre forwards to score goals, and it's no matter what Adam Ida's done previously for us. If he plays on Wednesday, I'm not expecting much because of the form that he's been in. But he needs to score. He needs to score goals.
It's a perfect time for him to answer a lot of the critics, isn't it? I think when I look at the forward situation, I had a bit of a disagreement with Chris actually on the game side of thing, because we were talking about Johnny Kenny and we spoke about Yamada obviously coming on and getting some minutes. I don't think there's a question that our number one striker right now, regardless of what's happened so far, is Adam Ida. I mean, I can't think there's going to be a different number 9 playing on Wednesday night. I'm not saying that's going to be the right choice throughout the season, but right now, Ida is still number one choice for me. Johnny Kenny got some game time. Obviously, Yamara did. I think Ida was rested. But I do think that he's going to turn this around, Acsom. It's a massive discussion point. What's your feeling on the Adam Ida situation?
If it was just based on what they're offering just now, there's not much between the 3 striking options, really, in terms of, like, we've watched a bit of them now in the 3 games, and I'm not going to include Yamada in that, actually, yet. It's unfair to judge him, but Kenny over the course of pre-season and the end of last season, start of this season, and Ida, there's not much between them, but what Ida's shown is he's got a higher ceiling. Like, we've seen what Ida can do, even though it's very inconsistent. For that reason alone, I would go with Ida. I still feel like Ida on his best has got more to offer than Kenny on his best from what we've seen so far. And he is the number one. I think Rodgers is going to stick with him, but he's got to start scoring soon, and he's got to start looking like he's offering a lot more than he is at the moment. And as you say, no better time to do it than Wednesday. I think he'll start the game, and fingers crossed he can break the duck for the season. But yeah, at the moment, it is the biggest worry in the team. It's that striking position. I thought Kenny again, and he didn't do anything to make me think, right, Kenny, you've earned your spot for Wednesday, and that's the problem. Nobody's doing that at the moment. But I think Ida will start.
The thing for me, Quinny, is when I watch Adam Ida, I don't come away thinking that guy's not got it. I get frustrated because I think he does have it, and I think he has shown it in the entirety of his time at Celtic, and that's my biggest frustration, because like this season so far, the form that I've seen from Ida, and for spells last season as well, I'm thinking we've seen a lot better from you. I think back to mainly the initial 6-month period, the Kilmarnock game, the big goals, the goal against Rangers in the cup final, the Fir Park, Easter Road. So he's shown that he can do it, Quinny, and I get more frustrated about Adam Ida than anything else. I'm not one of the fans that a lot of people say in the comment section he's just not got it. I don't agree with that, Quinny. I think we've seen that he does have it, and it's frustrating when he doesn't show it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think like the season so far, obviously didn't play against Falkirk, but St Mirren and Aberdeen, there was little okay bits in it, in terms of how he played and stuff like that. But I think like in these games that are coming up, like this is where, push comes to shove. And this is where, like people are referencing the stuff he did last season, like forcing the OG against young boys and all that kind of stuff. He did just about get by last year. I don't think we can talk about him as being like a success last year. And I know people keep holding out. He scored 20 goals, which is fine, and that goes on his tally and everything. But he needs to, anyone in the front line, it's not just Adam Ida, it's not just because of the money or anything like that. They have to win his matches. Like, that is what their thing is to do. And this is a game where, like I say, it's a cup final for them. It's certainly a cup final for us, or if not both of them will be. And, you know, these are the matches where that quality, that potential has to be shown out. And I think, like, I quite like the way it's changed this season with Negren coming into midfield, Tierney on the left. Everyone's talking about how great Tierney is, and I'm all about that as well. I think he's been great. My kind of quiet player of the year so far is Alistair Johnson. I think he's been amazing this year. But the way it's all building towards feeding a guy like him now. You know, we've got fullbacks that are proper, can hit a ball in and can take the ball on the channel. And the forwards like Dyson and Forrest can do something similar but dribble as well. And then when you've got midfielders coming through that are really happy to get in and around the box now, two of them, like Negren and Hatate, whereas last year, like, and again, it kind of ties into Falkirk. Engels was getting really close to the striker a lot against Falkirk, and was like begging for tap-ins, begging for cutbacks the whole game. You could tell he was just itching for someone. I don't know if you've seen his reaction to the OG that Yang forces, but he has gutted that ball didn't get dropped back for him. And there might have been another moment in the match similar to that. But Engels isn't the same as Hatate and Negren to go and like really support the striker in the attack. So I think it's all set up for Ida to do well now, and some of that potential. There's not going to be very many reasons to let him off the hook, if that's the only way of saying it, if he doesn't hit the back of the net in this game for me.
I'm going to get some quick predictions before I let you guys go. Kev, Wednesday night, give me a score prediction.
I think it'll be a nervy 2-0.
A nervy 2-0. Okay. Is Adam Ida going to get on the score sheet?
I hope so. I think the fact that we're actually discussing a player that's out of form and another player who is not at the level that we require shows what's the problem has been this summer. I want the big fella to score. I want him to have a decent game. I think it'll be Dyson and McGregor.
McGregor likes a European goal, yeah. And I could see that. I'm going to say 3-0. I'm going to be a wee bit more confident, and I hope. I'm also going to say that Adam Ida will get in the score sheet as well, as I'm feeling particularly positive despite the Wi-Fi issues. Acsom, what's your prediction for Wednesday night?
I'm going to agree with Kev. I think a nervy 2-0, which keeps it kind of in the balance. You know, it's one of those tricky ones because it's a good scoreline usually, a 2-0 home win, but it's one that you just know with Celtic away from home in Champions League qualifiers, nothing is ever a done deal. So yeah, I think we'll win 2-0. And I don't know about Ida, but yeah, let's fingers crossed for him. Let's hope he is the one to get the goals and give him a bit of confidence.
Yeah. I've got two nervy 2-0s, Quinny. I'm feeling confident. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling quite bullish on it as well. I think, again, part of the post-match stuff we heard from Brendan was like talking about how they really want to nip stuff out really quickly. They want to start the game on a really high tempo. And I think first leg at home, under the floodlights, biggest game half these guys have ever been involved in, if not all of them. Full Celtic Park. I just think we're going to start quick, get a goal or two early enough in the half. It might finish. It might not be like flying off into the sunset with a mad scoreline or anything like that, but I think we start the game quick. I think it's like a 4-0, a good wee kind of maybe 3-0 first half, and then you maybe get one halfway through the second or something before the subs all kind of take the sting out of the game or whatever. Then it just settles down to don't concede, at the end. So I'm going to die.
History's shown that I just didn't trust us in qualifiers. We always just make it difficult for ourselves, So it's like, hopefully the crowd stays with them. If it doesn't, if it's no gone, the way that if they are stuffy, if we're struggling to break them, then we need to stay with them. That is two legs, But I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it as well. Listen, apologies I dropped it a few times, but the team's so good you can run without me in any case. So thanks everybody for sticking with us. Thank you to Kev for jumping on, not only as DJ last night, but as the host today. Kev, that's what we're all about. Thanks everybody for getting involved. We're still at 2,300 strong. I would actually run for a wee while longer, but a bit of a temperamental issue with my signal just here. I would run through some of your comments. I don't want to do that in case I drop out on my own. But thank you every single one of you for getting involved. We'll be announcing some more Acsom dates soon, but in the meantime, there is a link underneath this video for wee Jamie Tierney. His family still needs your support. I'm still getting handed stuff, signed stuff last night. for wee Jamie's family. So thanks everybody for your support. And thank you once again to Kevin Graham, Acsom Rabani and Quinny for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.